and I think what we have to realize here is that there's multiple things happening. We have the Region of Waterloo, who seems to be taking responsibility for this 770-acre farmland, I'll call it expropriation or land assembly. 770 acres, to put that in perspective, it's an 8.5-kilometer drive around this parcel of farmland. So for those of you who aren't on the land all the time, that might help to put it in perspective. But that's not the only thing that's happening right now, with no public consultation, no community engagement, no studies, no plans, no environmental assessments or anything. We've seen the Township of Wilmot back at the end of November, November 27th, ask for, from the Minister, for expansion of its hundreds of acres of land within the countryside line, basically every single acre within the countryside line between New Hamburg and Baden that were to last generations, and then breaching the countryside line, looking for hundreds of acres south of that, all the way down to Highway 7 and 8, conveniently to connect to this to this industrial. So that's basically, we're in the middle of this in the Wilmot Rec Center here. That's south all the way down below the highway to the bottom of where the Mennonite Church is, and that farm parcel, or from here all the way up to the high school, from Baden to New Hamburg. Yeah. It is a massive amount of development, tens of thousands of people potentially, that has never been part of any official plan or planning before. To the regional official plan, assigned 7,000 to 14,000 people worth of growth to Wilmot Township. The reason that was based on was that's about the same 40 to 50% growth that every municipality was being given in the regional official plan, as the provincial government assigned 300,000 in population growth, or moving our region from 600,000 people up to 900,000 people between now and 2051, basically over the next 30 years. The region looked, where is the best to allocate those people around? There is a focus on intensification, locating people along the Ion corridor in Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo. But there's also growth for the rural municipalities, and there was about 10,000 people worth of capacity still remaining inside the New Hamburg sewage treatment plant. So the idea was, we paid for that capacity, it makes sense to utilize that and leverage those dollars, so hence the growth of 7,000 to 14,000 people here in Wilmot. That works out to about 46 hectares of expansion of people, if you work it out at about 85 people and jobs per hectare density. So that meant that it was about 100 acres that was allotted for development in the Wilmot official plan. In the regional official plan for Wilmot. Very consistent. Our official plan really was focusing on the future, on visionary, sustainable communities, compact, walkable communities with all the amenities that you need, a focus on transit, a focus on housing choice, a focus on housing affordability, as well as farmland protection and environmental protection. And the regional official plan really tried to focus on how can we do this with the least amount of farmland possible. We're not able to do it as well as Sandy Shaw's riding in Hamilton. They have done their official plan with 0 acres of farmland loss. Good time? Yes, it's at risk by Bill 185 and basically the erasure of settlement area boundaries. But kudos to Hamilton for building up and not out, putting in an LRT modeled very similar after ours, and aiming for no farmland loss. In Waterloo region, we realized in order to create complete communities, we needed to allow things that didn't exist. For example, in the Township of Wellesley, they're going to have over 3,000 people in their population over the age of 70 to 80 in the years ahead, and yet they have almost no seniors homes, no apartments, no suitable housing for them. So there was 15 hectares of expansion allowed to Wellesley to build that. Doesn't know yet whether it'll be apartments or condos or a seniors home or whatever, but the idea was we couldn't have 0 acres of farmland loss. We would need to have minimal farmland loss to try to allow our communities to grow sustainably and completely, but it was minimal farmland loss, 150 hectares for the entire region, of which Wilmot was almost getting a third of at its 46 hectares. Unfortunately, we saw Minister Steve Clark a few months after our regional official plan go in. He came back with no documentation, no rationale, no justification, no planning studies, and even though we were already maxing out the sewage plant here in New Hamburg and Baden, with the 46 hectares of sprawl, he ordered 288 hectares of sprawl, or almost 700 acres of sprawl, connecting the towns of New Hamburg and Baden. But then the township said, we want more than that, and in November 27th, they asked for all the lands within the countryside line, hundreds of acres south of Highway 7 and 8 as well, or south of the railway tracks down to Highway 7 and 8. And so now what we see is land for potentially tens of thousands. In fact, if you work out the densities, it could be 50,000 people roughly in that area, growing New Hamburg and Baden to a population of somewhere between 75 and 100,000 people potentially. But we don't have any details. There are, as I mentioned, there's been no reports, no public consultation, no open houses, no meetings, no events. But we do know that the township, once again, back on March 4th, asked for all this development approval from the province as part of Bill 162 that's tracking through, and some of the MPPs here have been sitting through the final, yeah, I look at see Ashton's putting up her hand back there, she's been sitting through all the final readings of that at Queen's Park this week. So it's not just this 770 acres of farmland that's being expropriated to the south and these farmers. Wilmot is asking for even actually a greater acreage of farmland. Still with no questions on where is the water coming from, where is the sewage going. We're already at a similar capacity within the Ninth River watershed. What a similar capacity means is that the river is already so polluted, we can't dump any more sewage into it. The only way to do this is to do what's called polishing the water. It's where you pull the water out of the river, treat it to drinking water standards, and then to put it back in the river so you dump your sewage into that. It is extremely expensive to do and not sustainable for into the future. So Kitchener does have sewage capacity right now at the Kitchener sewage plant. It got a $380 million upgrade. But the problem was is that sewage capacity is reserved for growth in Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo. And if it gets redirected out here to Wilmot, because it was never anticipated, it's not part of any official plan, transportation master plan, water servicing master plan, sewage master plan, or anything like that. So it looks like the only way that these developments in Wilmot are going to be able to be serviced is by taking water and sewage from other communities, intra-base transfers between watersheds of millions of liters a day or such. But we don't know because no one's answering any questions. There's been no public consultation. There's no studies, no environmental assessments or anything. And yet all this could be approved in its finality in the days ahead, either with the passage of Bill 162, enabling all these forest boundary expansions, or the expropriation of these lands to the south that the farmers sit every day wondering, is today the day that the lawyers are showing up with those expropriation notices. So many unanswered questions, so many things we need to figure out. I hope that answers some of the questions.
It's going to go to third readings.
Yes, and it's about to hit third reading. They were just doing the line by lines in it this past week. Yeah. I don't know if we know when it's been scheduled for a final vote, but it's imminently. It's within days.
And 185 will have hearings if people can come to the
Yes, and that's a really good point. Bill 185 will have hearings coming up, and people are able to come to the hearings. I actually went down to Queen's Park and was one of the 9 people lucky enough chosen by the Conservatives to delegate on it. It was fantastic to see members of the public there sitting in the standing committee galleries. Thank goodness for the grandmothers for saving the planet. It was fantastic to see them there. But we need to keep speaking up. We need to advocate for the future in the communities that we want to see in the future. And I'm not quite sure how many Wilmot residents had a future of a mega industrial assembly plant and a city of 100,000 people of New Hamburg. So this is where we need to speak up for the future we want to see.